My name is Richard Andrew, and I have the great pleasure of having Carolyn Mason-Parker, who's the head of school at KIS International in Bangkok. And we chatted over a year ago, and it's taken me this long to lure Carolyn back onto a Zoom call because Carolyn has a lot of amazing things to say about the professional learning space and many other things as well. So that's what we're doing here. All right, so let's talk about professional learning versus professional development.
Yeah, I forgot I framed that out in that way. But yes, professional learning versus professional development. Professional learning for me is ongoing. It's the continuous cycle piece. You continue to learn, you continue to grow. It doesn't matter where you are in your journey, your learning continues. Professional development is something that is done to you because it's coming from a deficit model and it's saying you do not have this in place, therefore we will develop you until you do. Learning is much more positive, is much more self-driven, and is much more self-focused. So yes, that you are absolutely correct. That is my big thing.
So can I be the devil's advocate here? Because what I love about your delineation is that you are describing two types of, let me use the word training, right? Because I can't use the term learning or development. So you're shining a light. Here's what works, and here's what doesn't work. And what doesn't work is what we've been doing for the last 100 years, and still is mostly what teachers go through in a one-day conference or whatever. But if you really want traction, then do this. And you're using the terms professional learning for the positive and professional development for what really doesn't work. And what I'll say is, I don't have a problem with that, but I guess I'm not as pedantic because a lot of places that I work that we are now successfully looking at the conversion between ideas and practice, they call it professional development. They can call it what they like, but it is working, right? So there's what works and what doesn't. You're using professional learning versus professional development. I'm sure there's some professional development that really works because it's just what they do. But let's not get too pedantic about the names. What the important thing is, if you want to run an experience for teachers where they improve in their teaching, then the characteristics that you are stating underneath your banner of professional learning is what we need to do and avoid what the other camp's doing. That's my kind of disclaimer on the terms. But
I would actually agree with you on that, to be fair. That is how I define them. That's
yes.
not necessarily how other people use them. That is just my separation. I will completely agree with you on the semantics.
But it does make it easier for you to explain the differences. So anyone who's listening to this, if you are running in your school some fantastic professional, what you call professional development, don't be offended because
Absolutely, yes.
what Carolyn is referring to, what you're doing is professional learning.
That would make sense, yes.
Yeah, right.
It's
okay.
From the ongoing model, the continuous, the self-reflection, the enthusiastic. It's the things we do with kids in the classroom. When we talk about students and learning, we talk about cycles that go around. We talk about getting them engaged. We talk about making it exciting, showing that they are growing, showing that they are developing in different ways, showing that things are changing for them, showing that they have that mind shift. That's what we need to do with professional learning, professional development, whatever you want to call it. That's what we need to do with teachers and with educators.
You mentioned the word self-reflection.
Mm-hmm.
Why is self-reflection, like if, let's say I'm a teacher on your staff and I think I'm doing pretty good, but you know that I'm not going anywhere because my kids aren't happy and I'm kind of stuck, but I maybe don't know that I'm stuck. For me to shift, why is it important for me to self-reflect?
Nobody makes a shift if they don't truly believe they need to make a shift.
Yes.
And if there's no self-reflection in the process, you don't understand that a shift needs to be made. You don't make a shift. Kids are the same. If kids can't see that there's going to be something that happens in them or a change that they can make, you don't engage with the process. It becomes that this is something that's being done to me. Again, you are telling me I'm not good enough. You are telling me I have to do this. Nobody likes being told what to do. Adults hate it even more when you're telling them it's because they're not good enough to start with. If you don't have that connection and you haven't seen for yourself how it can help you grow, you are never going to grow.
And a lot of teachers are playing the game. I've got to go to this PD, here I am, and I'll pretend that I'm into it, but I know damn well I'm not going to do anything with this.
And I think that's kind of, I talked there about kids as well and said, we do this for students. we do need to do it for adults, but we need to also remember that adult learning is different to student learning. Adults are coming in usually at the end of the day, sometimes on a weekend, because we've said, oh, it's a Saturday because we're not pulling you out of the classroom. And kids, their job is to be at school, their job is to learn. Teachers are already doing a job, their job is to teach. So when they're learning and they're growing, it's additional load. It's something we're asking them to do on top of that. They've probably got families at home. They're probably wondering when they're going to get to the bank. They're probably wondering when the car is going to get serviced. They're probably thinking they need to make a dentist appointment for their children. Their focus at the end of the day of teaching is not, oh, how do I now grow and develop myself and learn myself? And what can I do to be better at the job that I've already done today? It needs to be different. It needs to be something that they can be enthusiastic about, and that is something that is exciting for them as well and gives them something that's rooted in them.
Although I would say, if I may, that the dynamics that work for teachers that get them inspired and wanting to grow are exactly the same dynamics as work for students.
Oh, totally. I agree with that piece. That's another piece I rant about. Yes, we spend half our life saying to teachers, don't stand in front of a whiteboard and point things out on a PowerPoint and expect kids to be enthusiastic. All your kids are not at the same level. Don't just give them all the same worksheet. And yet we bring teachers into after school learning sessions and we say, now, I'm going to stand here and show you a PowerPoint deck, and I'd like you to take some notes, and then we're all going to talk about the same thing, and we're all going to enter this conversation at the same point, and we're all going to leave at the same point, which is exactly what we say don't do in the classroom.
I know. It's the herding the sheep mentality, isn't it?
So yes, the things we do in the classroom to engage kids, we have to do with faculty and staff. It has to be differentiated. You have to meet them where they're at. You have to have different ways for people to grow at different paces. We're not all going to be in the same place at the same time. Conversation I was having today with our digital officer and our board was around AI and how we bring AI into school in a structured way and what that looks like for faculty, for staff, for students. It's not going away. So what do we do with it? How do we use it in a way that's productive? But also thinking of the learning that needs to go around that, because I know if we do a survey, every single one of our faculty and staff will tell me that are at a different point with AI, that they've engaged with it differently, that they have different favorite forms, that they use it for different things. Putting out a 30-minute professional development session on AI and saying, this is what we now do with it, is not going to work for anybody. Very frustrated people in a room.
Do you have a few teachers who are using AI well, not just tools, but using it in terms of raising the thinking and awareness of the kids? And
yes,
so
I've great practice with it that we can bring in, but it kind of goes back to that. If we then put a system in place, I know there's 10 teachers in that room that are phenomenal, and sitting there saying, well, this is how we log in and this is how we write a prompt is so not what they need. But I also know that there's another 10 sitting there who have never touched it because they're like, no, we don't really think this is the way to go. We don't really want to bring it into the classroom. We think it might be seen as cheating. So no. And they absolutely need the very starts of, well, how do we write a prompt? What does a prompt look like? Why do we need a prompt? In fact, why do we even want to use AI is possibly where we need to start. So it's just that, yeah, differentiate for adults the way you would for kids. But have your champions, have those people that are going to be enthusiastic, run with it and show the best practice. It's transformational in the classroom.
Again, circling back to that conversation we had off air, that's where you could have that sort of system where you're tapping those front runners on the shoulder and say, hey, can you just do some screen recordings and show what you're doing? But then you've got other tutorials for people who want to make a start.
Oh, it's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, the power that it brings. I was reading the EFF research that came out last week, I think their research paper that talked about how it helped teachers and how you could use it to relieve a lot of the workload, but then how you could use that time that had been freed up to build relationships and build connections with students. And for me, that's where the power of it comes. You can't teach AI to be human. You can teach children to be human and build those relationships and interpersonal skills. And AI gives you time to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yes, I hope, because there was a post on LinkedIn today and And I just threw in a curly one because you would think that the advent of computers would have reduced the workload for teachers. I know AI is different to just the advent of computers, but you'd think that that would reduce the workload. But because you can do so much more with computers than you could without, then the expectations just rose. So I'm hoping that the focus is on reducing the workload with AI and not, oh, look, the extra things we can do. So that's my, because I'm not convinced there's enough people high enough up looking down at the teachers concerned about work intensification. Anyway, that's a completely different.
Well, no, it's an interesting one though. I don't think it will reduce the workload. I think it will shift the workload. I think it will shift it away from the mundane and into the transformational teaching pieces, the actual working with the kids, the being with students, building relationships, the connections. I think that's where the time will go. I don't think time will, I don't think you have increased time. I think you have increased time with kids and less time creating rubrics and churning out lesson plans. No, that's what I think AI will let us do. I think AI will cut some of the time we spend on dotting I's, crossing T's, and bring it back into the classroom.
Yeah.
It has to. It absolutely has to.
It has to. Otherwise, we're going to lose too many teachers. One of the aspects of professional learning, in other words, professional learning that works, you're talking about it needs to be cyclical and ongoing. What do you mean by cyclical?
Yeah, a bit like I said earlier, I think, just that with students, we're in IB school, we talk about kids, we cycle through curriculum. We don't teach the theme once, we come back to it again and again. We bring it in different contexts, we bring it through different subjects.
Right.
We don't expect it's just, I've told you once, done.
Right.
We expect students to go away and try it in different ways, to explore with it, experiment with it, and come back with a deeper understanding. Professional learning needs to be exactly the same.
So you're suggesting that we don't do the day on differentiation and then that's it. We've done differentiation, tick. Now we're on to inclusion.
Absolutely.
And that's the next month. Right.
Yes. Well, you can do a day, by all means, do a day, do the big intensive push at the beginning, go away, play with it, explore it, try it in your class. What does it look like if you're a primary teacher? What does it look like in math? What does it look like in social studies? What does it look like in PE? If you're a secondary teacher, what does it look like with grade 8? What does it look like with grade 10? Bring that back, have another couple of discussions about it, talk with different people, learn from different people, share with different people, take it away again, try some different techniques. You've talked with people, what have they done? What's worked? Will that work in your classroom? Take that away, come back again the third time. You have to keep coming around and cycling through. What have you read? What have you seen? Who's tried what? Who's said what? It's not a day and done.
One of the things that you mentioned a number of times, the implementation of ideas. It always mystifies me that so much money and effort is given to professional development, we'll call it that, but not that many people are saying, but we've got to track the translation of ideas into practice because, we can't really do that because we're doing a one-day PD and it's in our beautiful ballroom and it's beautiful lunch and everyone's loving it and we're going to have lovely photographs on LinkedIn. But what's the outworking of that experience? And it's like, it's too hard, so we won't ask the question.
No, totally. What's the point if it doesn't have an impact on students?
What's the point? Why even do it? There is something to be said for having a professional learning, but really it's a social get together, and so there's a point to that. But let's be honest and say, well, that's what it's about. If an experience like that isn't producing change in classrooms across almost all of your teachers, then it's a fail, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So how do we solve this? Because what percentage of PD is short term, do you think? Like it's a half day or a full day or maybe a couple of days over a couple of terms, but even that's short term.
I think an awful lot of it is. I think that goes back to where we started with talking about the tapping into things and finding a way that makes it interesting for people, makes it something that people can see themselves growing with and developing personally. Because as soon as you get that personal buy-in, you're going to keep going back to it and keep revisiting it.
Yeah.
Making it relevant, making it feel like you're having impact. I have yet to meet a teacher who goes into the classroom of a morning and goes, well, yeah, you know what? I don't really care about the kids in here. I don't really care if they learn today. I don't really think I need to have an impact. Every single teacher I've ever met walks into that classroom every single day wanting to do the best for those kids, wanting those kids to leave a little bit better than they were when they came in the morning. And that just means they need to have that passion to go in and to see that impact that they're having, to be able to know that what they're doing and the learning they're bringing is impacting their kids and seeing them learn a little bit too.
I, in an article, applied the term foot shooting to teaching. I can do this because I know that for the first few years in my teaching career, all I ever did was shoot myself in the foot. In other words, I'm wanting to have an impact. I'm one of those teachers. I'm enthusiastic. I really want to have an impact. And yet, unbeknownst to me, almost everything I'm doing is the opposite to generating the outcomes that I'm looking for. Am I just a one-off here, or do you see that in action? It's not the teacher's fault because it's a lack of awareness thing.
Mm-hmm. I have to say, I've taught a few of those classes myself, and I've just been there. Oh, I have done you such a disservice. This was not what was supposed to happen. I do love this. It's not my idea. I stole it from an amazing head of school I worked with about 12, 15 years ago. We have I blew it slips. And every teacher gets I blew it slips at the beginning of the year because everybody goes in thinking they're going to do something amazing. And some days you just come out and go, I tried my best. It just did not work. Yeah, today was an I blew it day. You don't have to really turn them in. It just gives you permission to know that
Oh, that's so
something
good.
coming from the best place. It just didn't work.
That's brilliant.
Oh, I love it. That's why I stole it. It also means that when I do something in my role, I can just tell teachers, yeah, you know what? I blew it today too. It's genuinely thought this was going to help. Didn't work out the way I thought. I'm sorry. I'll do better next time.
Wow, I blew it slips. That's brilliant.
Oh, it is. I absolutely love it. I wish I'd thought of it.
What do you think about? Oh, look, we could be getting off track here, but I think this is all related. Teaching is a creative pursuit, right? So there's a certain level. I know research is important and data, what do the experts say? But the importance of following your nose, following your intuition about what's working and what's not is really important. And we never talk about it. It's almost like dangerous because, oh, what if someone's following their intuition? It's bad intuition, and mate, it's not intuition at all. It's just mindsets. Do you think that in your career, a lot of the initiatives that you introduced, were they largely because it was just obvious that was the next thing to do? Like, were you always looking for getting feedback from your class and then thinking, oh, I'm going to make that change next time? But where that comes from is not because you read chapter 9 of a certain book yesterday. It might have been, but it's often because it's just obvious that you need to do that because your experience tells you that that's the obvious thing to do, and you hadn't really thought about that before, but you're going to try that and you're really convinced it's going to work, and 9 times out of 10 it does, and then you keep doing that. So it's organic. True or not?
No. Yeah, no, I agree. I think there is a level of intuition there, but I think that's where the data piece comes in as well. Are you checking, are you making sure that what you did had an impact? Because sometimes you might need the I blew it slip and it might be, yeah, that did not have an impact. But if you're
Right.
going into it saying, actually, the kids are engaged, I'm seeing increased or better outputs coming from the students, I'm seeing that they are developing whatever the skill is you're working on, I can
Yeah,
see the
yeah,
progression, I've got the data to tell me that they're growing, or I've got the feedback surveys or the exit slips or whatever it is you've done,
yeah, right.
you're checking and seeing. I think that data is valuable. And if you're not collecting that data to see
Right.
that my intuition is having an impact, it can be dangerous. I think as long as you've got that proof that your intuition is having a positive impact, it's usually right. It goes back to the teachers don't usually come in thinking, I'm going to really mess up this kid today.
So with the data, right, with all the messy skills, the soft skills, before they were going through the motions, now they're really not eating out of my hand necessarily, but they are fervent, they're passionate, and they're discussing things and they're arguing the points from an educational perspective, and they're taking ownership and they are reflecting and all those things that are like wishy-washy, yeah, yeah, whatever, but really what did they score a 7 or an 8 at the test, which is easy data. So do you have any recommendations for collecting data on those soft skills that are so important? And they're all through IB, aren't they? But not just IB. I mean, we should all be looking.
We have a lot of the rubrics that come from the IB. We have a lot of teacher-written rubrics. We do a lot of the learning journal style things. We do the videos. We do the photos to show what they're doing. We have the student self-reflection pieces. We have them record or write their learning stories. So it's a lot of that piece that sits within that.
Yeah, right. So it's not that hard.
It's not that.
AI could really help there.
It could. It can really develop
you feed that stuff in, and then AI just spits out.
Yep, absolutely. But like you say, we're an IB school. We have rubrics for all of those things developed. It's then just about refining and changing and tweaking year on year and redefining what a word means in your department or for your subject or for your age group, and having that ready to go, making sure the kids know what that looks like as well.
Back to a point, you said something that made me write down the word reflection. And what I mean by this is, I should write an article about this because I think it's a really important point. For some reason, I realized at a certain point in my career that the way my students were tackling a lesson was a direct reflection of me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm not talking about walking into a really difficult class first day. Oh, it's all my fault because they're out of control. Like, I'm talking about a class that you've been with for a while, and today it's not happening. We're at war, blah, blah, blah. And I think, oh my God, Richard, it's 100% your fault, right? Because I'm not in the mood, or like I've been reacting instead of responding, whatever, a million things. But then when I was reflecting on that, I'm not sure that's all that normal, but I think it should be. What's your take on that? And is that something we should be thinking about? Because I think it gives us more control if we realize that it's not a teaching thing, it's a life thing. It happens in relationships, it happens with your kids, it's like, it's a reflection. So if you adopt that to the classroom, it's quite empowering. It's also a bit confronting, but it's empowering because it gives you so much more control, because it makes you realize you've got so much more control.
Yep, I would agree with you. I think you do have an awful lot of impact in that classroom. It's also important to be kind to yourself and remember that you're human. And everybody has days when they come in and you know what? I didn't sleep last night. The kids kept me awake. Yeah, just be aware that you're a little bit grumpy, or maybe you've got a little bit of a short fuse, and it is going to impact what happens in the classroom. Kids tend to be forgiving if they can understand where you're coming from.
You might want to advertise that up front that lesson.
Absolutely. I think it's confusing for them if 90% of the time you're one way and you come in and you're not. They're off kilter because their normal has changed. If you give them a why, they can be understanding. If they don't understand why their normal is different, then it plays into how they see the class and how they respond for the rest of the day and the rest of the lesson.
Which leads me to apologies, because I remember one class, I lost it. I can't remember the details. Felt so bad. And I walked in the next day and I said, right, everyone, let me give you the drum, right? Let me give you the drill. I completely blew it last lesson. I gave all these examples and I said, I apologize. If you accept that, let's move on. And you could just see the relief in the kids. It's like, oh, this guy's okay. He had a bad day, and he's human. And then because apologies are so powerful anyway. But yeah,
I think it's important for kids to see their teachers apologize too. If you know you've done something, just apologize. They feel like they are being told to apologize a lot. Yeah, being able to, you do it too. It's fine. We can all make a mistake. It's okay to make a mistake as long as we grow from it, as long as we learn from it, as long as we genuinely reflect on it and try not to do the same thing again.
Well, we're trying to engender that in our kids, aren't we? So why not demonstrate that from the front? All right, so just finishing off, if a school leader is listening to this and they are interested in this whole professional learning, getting teachers on side, making improvements across the board, what would be your top 1 or 2 extra messages that you'd give? Sorry to put you on the spot there, but
That's okay. I was gonna say, well, one of them is the one I stole, is I blew it slips. I love them. They are incredibly powerful because it lets you know you can make a mistake. It feeds into the professional learning piece because mistakes are okay. Everybody makes mistakes, but we reflect on it. We realize what we've done wrong. We learn, we grow, we move on. That's my top tip.
That's your top tip. So it's not just the fact that you've got a slip of paper and you can go, it's the whole, it's like the antithesis to what I was talking about, isn't it? Where you walk into this math staff room where no one is talking about the issues because no one's clearly prepared to say that they've got issues. And I know they've got issues because I've been in their classrooms. And it's not just because I'm the casual teacher. I had one class, it was the same school actually, and I thought, oh, here we go. This is going to be a cracker. You walk in, there was no intention that any of them were going to do anything. So I wrote instructions on the board, said, everyone listen, that should work, right? And I thought, I'm not going to go and shout and scream and carry on. So I thought, okay, so I need them to realize that I know what's going on here. So I'd walk around and I'd say, what's your name? Peter. Okay, Peter. Doesn't look like you intend to do anything today. Nah. Okay, just checking. And I go to the next one, next one. So they were thinking, well, this guy's a bit weird, like I was just getting them to know that I knew what was going on. Then I said at the front, I said, hey, look, just listen. I'm really, really good at explaining this stuff. So if any of you have questions, if you want to try me out, you got 40 minutes. And someone asked me a question. And so I'm working with those couple of kids, and then someone else asked me a question. So this didn't work for the whole class, but I had half the class going, and they were going, oh, this is great. Wish we could have yours, which was the sad part, on leaving. Oh, I wish we could have yours. But like, I was just being human. And I'm not saying, look, I had some shocker lessons as a casual teacher as well, but I thought, well, this is just problem solving here. Like, I just want to show them what I can do and give kids a bit of choice, and away we go, and then those kids got a lot out of it. But I don't know how I got onto that one, but
it's connection and relationships. It's the be all and end all of teaching. If you don't have connection and you don't have a good relationship and a good rapport, it's a nightmare job. If you can build those, you're in a pretty good place.
And further to your professional learning mantra, I think teachers lose track of what they signed up for. And what we signed up for, it doesn't happen every lesson, but you want classes where there's a lot of lessons where it's all happening and you're feeling inspired and there's that creative flow and things happen that you didn't plan to happen because there's a learning culture there and you're part of the gang, although you're the teacher, right? And it's fantastic. Those lessons shouldn't just happen once a year. They should be happening every week where you go, wow, that was amazing. I couldn't have planned that to happen, but it happened because you've got that rapport with them. You've given them some agency, whether you know it or not. That's the outworking of good professional learning, isn't it?
It is. Yep.
What can be wrong with that?
No, I completely agree. It's that you're right. The learning culture is everybody's learning together.
Yeah. I think on that note, we might hit the stop button. So thanks, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, there you go. It wasn't too hard.
It wasn't.